Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, right here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Coconino beach volleyball coaches Greta Hanneman and Scott Dendy. They'll break down the growth of beach volleyball in Northern Arizona. We'll then be joined by Northland Prep Academy softball coach Betty Dean, who will discuss some of the challenges she faces while coaching at a smaller school. But on the other side of this break, we'll be joined by Coconino baseball coach Dalton Schwetz to discuss his approach to growing the program in his first year. All of that and a whole lot more right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I am joined now by Coconino boys baseball coach Dalton Schwetz. Coach Schwetz, welcome on to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to talking a little Coco baseball and Coco athletics.
That is right. We will be talking some Coco baseball. Coach Schwetz is stepping into his first season with the program. He is now the baseball coach over at Coconino. He's also the defensive coordinator over at Coconino High School, but we'll talk about football a little bit later. Coach, baseball, your first season, as I just mentioned. Currently, the Panthers are sitting within the top 20 of the 4A conference rankings right now. What have you liked from your team in your first year?
Yeah, so I'd say the first thing I love about these guys is just the way they embraced me when I stepped in. New program, new coach. So they kind of, embraced me and really just went to work. So that's kind of been our goal, is try to get better every day. I had to build a relationship with them. They had to, build a relationship with me. But once we got that stuff out of the way, we just went to work and tried to get better every single day. So we're playing our best baseball here down the stretch.
Coach, do you have any tips for anybody who may be taking over their program after a pandemic? Do you have any tips for anyone who might, trying to bond with the team quickly? Is there anything that you guys did specifically that you'd like to talk about?
I'd say just for coaches, the biggest thing, you better stay organized. With all the stuff going on, it was just, you had to stay organized, stay on top of everything, and then just be there for the kids, right? They have to earn your trust, and I had to earn their trust as well. It's a two-way street. So I had to show them that I was there for them. And like I said, we just went to work and got all sorts of stuff done within that first couple of weeks.
Offensively, Coach, you've got sophomore Quinn Mickelson, who's batting very well. You've also got senior Trevor Sevier, who is batting very well. It's kind of interesting. You've got an upperclassman and an underclassman really showing out so far this season. Both players batting over 400. Obviously, Trevor graduates after this season, so you won't have him. But you do return Quinn. First off, going forward, we'll talk about the roster in general. You do have a relatively younger roster. First and foremost, getting somebody like Quinn back next season, how does that make you feel going forward? And who else has really been stepping up offensively for you?
Yeah, so Trev and Quinn have really just set the tone for us offensively as a baseball team. They're guys we can count on every single day. Their averages show that. Trev as a senior is super involved as a leader on our team. He's had a lot of success playing baseball here already, his first couple of years at Coco. So he's kind of helping these young guys with their approach at the plate. I'll even see him helping guys out in the cage. He's all about this baseball team. So he's really set the standard there. And I'm super excited, right? You brought up Quinn. Quinn's only a sophomore. He's one of, I think, 7 or 8 sophomores we've had with us at different times throughout this season. He's had the most success thus far. He's got tremendous hands. His approach is great. And he's just a tough kid, right? He's one of those kids, even if he doesn't square the ball up, he's going to beat out the throw to first or, get dirty, get sweaty, get bloody, find a way to get on. So, other guys that have done a lot of good things for us. Tanner Johnson's a junior, so another underclassman. He controls the bat really well. So he'll bunt, he'll hit and run, he'll do all sorts of different things with his bat control to find a way to move guys around. We already talked about Quinn and Trev. Another senior is Dylan Davis, who's really stepped up. He's played some here in the past couple of years, but this is kind of, a coming out party for him maybe. So he's really overachieved in some people's eyes and done a lot of good things for us as well. So those are some of the guys that have led the way for us on offense so far.
It's got to be good to have a guy like Trevor, Coach. Obviously, you stepping into your first season, you get a kid who is almost like a player coach in a lot of ways. You just talked about it, him helping guys out with their approach at the plate, or even just throwing them some batting practice here and there. Just in general, and we'll talk a little bit about Trevor as well. He's been solid on the mound for you. Let's just transition into that. Trevor's also been solid on the mound, under 3 ERA so far with 20 strikeouts. Obviously, we're still kind of in the middle portion of the season, coming more towards the tail end. But I mean, to have a guy, Coach, like Trevor Sevier, who has really been is consistently stepping up as a leader since he jumped onto the program as a freshman. But I mean, for you, Coach, how much it's got to take off a little bit of pressure for you to have somebody there sort of micromanaging a little bit as a player coach.
Absolutely. And Trevor's just a leader. We already talked about him at the plate, but on the mound, we have all the faith in the world in him to go up there and compete. Right. I got to know Trevor this fall. He played football, and he's not a football guy, but he came out and he did some good things for us. So I got to know him there. But then I got to know a whole new Trevor come baseball season. A much more confident kid, and just a baseball guy overall. Whether he decides to go play college ball or not, he definitely could. But I know it's just somebody who's going to be around the game the rest of his life. Because he's always engaged with it. He's engaged with the sport. He's engaged with his teammates. He's engaged with his coaches. And he just wants to find a way to win. So when he steps up on the bump, we have faith in him to throw strikes. I know he has faith in the guys behind him to make plays. And he's getting better. And, the young guys behind him are getting better. And he's done some good stuff for us so far.
Along with Trevor, obviously you do have a sort of a plethora of pitches as well. You've got 2 sophomores that kind of jumped out to me. A very small sample sizing for Caden Talley and Jacob Klaus. Both guys haven't gotten necessarily an opportunity to pitch a whole lot, but when they did, they pitched very well, Coach. It was very hard for them to give up hits, which is great. Obviously, that's what you want from your young pitchers. So, Coach, going forward, despite the small sample size, you get a good offensive production from Quinn Mickelson. You got some good sophomores coming up who are going to get more opportunities next season. I mean, going forward, this rotation, how are you feeling going into next season, knowing you could be looking at a good core of guys coming back?
Yeah, well, we're very optimistic as we move into the end of this season. Into this summer and then ultimately into next spring. You mentioned Caden Talley and Jacob Klaus. Those are 2 competitors that'll step up there and throw strikes. Another sophomore that has been tremendous for us, starting some games, is Adrian Marquez. He's really got his stuff going, so we're excited to see what he can do moving forward. Anthony Lucero is a junior that'll be back. He's got potential to be an everyday starter for us next year. Quinn does pitch a little bit, so, we got Quinn coming. So, those are 5 guys, and I'm sure I missed a couple others as well. But we'll have 5 to 8 solid pitchers as we move forward into these next couple of years. So we're excited about that. And Coach Vesley, he coached at Coco years ago. He's back with us this year kind of as our pitching coach. So he's been getting those guys dialed in. Working with those young guys, teaching them breaking pitches, teaching them the changeup, teaching, working on their control. So it's been really exciting to see those guys get better working with him every day.
Let's talk more about the future, Coach. The JV program and the freshman program are playing well. JV has only lost 1 game so far. Freshmen have only lost 2. As we talked about, you're trying to build this program. You're trying to grow the program. You're graduating 5 seniors. We talked about that a little bit. Coach, in terms of long-term success, we mentioned a few sophomores who look good. We haven't talked at all about specifically any JV or freshman players who are going to be on the roster next season. So in terms of long-term success, Coach, how are you feeling about this team?
Yeah, we're really excited. The JV and freshman 9-10 teams, those coaches have been working those guys like crazy. A couple of guys on the JV team we're excited about are Connor Callahan.
Okay.
He's another sophomore. He pitches for the JV team. He's also spent a little time with us on varsity this year, so we're excited about him. Cooper Durr, sort of the same situation. He's probably their other starter down there. Another sophomore, and then those 2 guys are the kind of the leaders I see on that team. They've kind of bounced back and forth between JV and varsity, so we're excited about them moving forward. Just another couple sophomores that make the future really bright here, and we're excited about those guys.
Coach, continuing to develop that program. Obviously, you'll have some talent there at the JV level and the freshman level, as you just talked about. But let's expand out a little bit more, Coach. Obviously, your recruiting can only really stay within the school. You can't go out and recruit people. Obviously, Coconino is a public school. They're not a private school. But how are you going to try to develop more of that baseball talent when you do get to the off season? Are you involved in any youth programs? Are there any youth programs going forward that you might want to look into? Where are we at, and where is your focus at going forward with developing talent for the future of Coconino baseball?
Yeah, so I think the first step is just getting the kids off season. I think is going to be huge for us moving forward. But really have some opportunities for them year round in some capacity. I think that's the biggest thing. I just want these kids playing, getting innings. Kind of after the spring ends, we'll give them a little bit of time off to rejuvenate, and then we'll kind of dive into our summer stuff. We're going to compete our faces off in that and try to get better. All these young guys need to get those innings. It'll be fun. We'll get the 9-10 teams and JV guys kind of competing for spots at different levels during the summer as well. In terms of, Little League and levels like that, I know, there's some people I know in the community that are really involved with that stuff, and I know they're excited about what they choose. They're excited about the future of baseball and the future of athletics in this town. Yeah. So we're extremely optimistic there. We just want kids to be excited. If they choose Coco, we want them to be excited about what we have going on here, and that's kind of our big goal moving forward.
Again, we are speaking with Dalton Schwetz. He is the head baseball coach over at Coconino High School. He is in his first season as the head coach of that baseball program. He is also the defensive coordinator for the Coconino football team. Coach, you describe yourself more as a baseball guy, which is interesting. You talk about Trevor Sevier going over to football, also being more of a baseball guy, has a bit of that coach's mentality. You yourself did participate in football growing up in Washington. You got an opportunity to play both sports at Pacific, but unfortunately injuries kind of cut that short. So, Coach, I want to ask you, maybe you have some advice. It's more of a two-parter question. Do you have any advice for any players who might have been in your similar situation, coming off of injuries, question marks of the future of their career, but then they take on coaching, and it's a very fulfilling thing to do, to coach the future generation of players. So I want to get your opinion on that, Coach, making that transition from player to coach. How has it been, and do you have any advice for somebody who may be in a similar situation?
I'd say the first thing I just want to talk about is I just tell our guys, and I tell any kids I can talk to, play all the sports, be multi-sport athletes, play football, baseball, basketball, wrestling, soccer, whatever that looks like for you, get involved and do it all. That's kind of what I did. And I look back now and I'm so glad I did make that decision. At Pacific, I played football, had the opportunity to play baseball. Injuries didn't really let me do that. But again, just getting involved with everything. For me, I knew I wanted to coach at a young age. So I kind of always knew I wanted to coach. So when I was still playing, I was, taking extra notes and having those conversations and trying to get myself prepared for when that day came. Sadly, it came just a tad sooner than I had hoped. But I felt like I was ready there. So, at Pacific, I coached football for a couple of years, and that was a unique transition for me. Literally coaching some of my teammates, guys who I played with, and then making the quick transition and being their position coach and kind of leading an entire room of guys, a lot of which I did play with. So, when you're making that transition, you just have to be prepared. You have to be confident. And make sure you know your stuff. And that's, me coaching football at a young age at the college level really, really taught me those lessons. And then when I transitioned to the high school level, I just kind of took what I learned and continued to grow and improve and make things my own. And just had a blast with it. So, the last 5-6 years, I've been very involved with football. Growing up, I was more of a baseball guy. The last, more recently, I've been more of a football guy, but I was excited to get back on the baseball field and just really help these kids any way I could. That's my goal. Just be there for them and help them get better in everything they do.
Coach, we got 2 more questions for you. Let's stay with football. Have you started off-season workouts? How's the team looking so far in those workouts? And who's going to replace Big 3-4? The all-time leading rusher, Zach Bennett, is officially out of Coconino. So who's going to step in and try to replace those very, very big shoes?
Absolutely. So, we've been doing workouts since January. That's been a big part of our transition in Coco athletics as a whole. Whether that's football, baseball, whatever else, all our teams are having a lot of success right now. So it's the off-season training and weight room and growth in those areas. So as a football program, we've really been doing that stuff now for a couple months. Next week, we start spring football. So really start diving in there. And then, we'll get into summer and eventually into fall ball stuff. In terms of Zach Bennett, it won't be just one guy. We'll have a bunch of guys step up. Again, we're super excited about what we have coming back and some of the young guys that will step up for us.
Right.
As the defensive coach, I think, we have a chance to be as good, if not better, than we've been here the last couple of years that I've been here on defense. So we're excited about that. That's the expectation. And then we'll find, a couple guys that can step up and get those carries for Zach and fight to get yards and see if we can't take another step. I feel like every year we've taken another step in football. So that's our goal this year. Just take one more step and keep getting better.
Well, I do want to thank Coach Coconino High School baseball coach Dalton Schwetz for coming on the program. They finish up their series against Flagstaff this week. They look ahead to Lake Havasu. Coach, we are out of time. I do want to wish you best of luck against Lake Havasu coming up next week. Best of luck with the baseball program moving forward. We look forward to seeing how you continue to grow that strong program. And we cannot wait to see that replacement for Zach Bennett when we do get to football season. But Coach Schwetz, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Hey, yeah, thank you guys, and super excited about the future here. So thanks for having me on, and I'm sure I'll talk again soon.
We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we will stay with Coconino, but we will head from the baseball diamond to the beach as we get a chance to sit down with Greta Hanneman, the girls beach volleyball coach over at Coconino High School. Stay with us. Off the Bench. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I am joined now by Coconino High School beach volleyball coaches, Greta Hanneman and Scott Dendy. Thank you both for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Well, the Panthers are absolutely rolling this season, currently undefeated, ranked within the top 5 of the state. Coaches, I'll keep it simple. We take turns. We'll start with you, Greta. How are you both feeling about the season so far?
Oh, no complaints, of course. When you're 9-0, no complaints there. We're constantly working on things in practice to, try to prepare for the next opponent, always trying to get better. The girls are just absolutely on a roll right now. So I don't think we have any complaints. We're completely happy with the kids and their effort. It's been an awesome ride so far.
Awesome. Coach Dendy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, obviously love where we're at. But like Coach was saying, we still got to get better every day at practice. And so we go in with a couple goals at practice and a couple ways we can get better, even though, we come off a win, but we still see ways we can improve. So we know we're going to meet some tough opponents here in the playoffs, hopefully pretty soon.
Well, jumping back more into the regular season, coaches, talk about tough opponents. You play against Deer Valley. You hand them their first loss of the season last week. We're getting close to playoff time. So in terms of confidence, you get a win like that against a strong opponent, somebody you're more than likely going to see in the playoffs. What kind of confidence does it give you guys going forward when you beat a team like that in the regular season?
Well, a lot. I mean, it's, we've played these tough matches, these last couple matches that we've had. It always gives the girls something, okay, we did it, we can do it again type of thing. But also we try to let them know that could have gone either way. So we try to keep them honest. And of course, you always like to win them all. And that's what we're striving to do. But when we went to Deer Valley, we weren't sure just how good we were. We felt like we were good, but we thought that when we played Boulder Creek, our first match of the season, that would be a good test for us. And it was. And then, we had some opponents that it wasn't that tough of a match for us. So we were looking forward to Deer Valley, and we were thrilled the way it came out because we hadn't really been fully tested. And when the girls pulled that out last week, it gave them all the confidence in the world. They look at the rankings, they look at, our opponents, and if they won 4-1 or 3-2, and they're paying attention to that. So we try to keep them in check. And just like when we played Northwest Christian, that could have gone either way. It's more fun playing against those opponents to push our girls, and they just keep stepping up to the challenge.
Mm-hmm. And we as coaches have been talking about the state championship as a goal from the beginning. But after that win in Deer Valley, that was the first time I think the girls kind of almost bought in. It's like, oh, we do have a shot, And so that was awesome. It was an unbelievable win. Proud of them.
Well, even like you said, Coach, they hadn't really been tested yet up until that point, and they get an opportunity to play against Deer Valley. And Coach Dendy, you just said it. They buy in after they get that victory. You talk about that, we're going to compete for a state title this year, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, probably. And then when they get a win like that, it's like, yeah, we definitely can. So like you guys said, a lot of confidence going forward. You got a solid team this year. Rakenna Curtis, Brooke Parker, Megan Hicks, Maggie Popham, all 4 seniors. They've been playing very, very well. Coach Dendy, this is your first core group of seniors in your 4 years here at Coconino High School. Coach Hanneman, you've been with the program a little bit longer. I want to take it from both your perspectives, seeing those seniors grow throughout their time with the program. It's got to be a good feeling, right?
Yeah, I think the seniors, you hit it. They're for sure playing their best volleyball that we've seen on the beach in their 4 years. We were looking really good last year, so it's a shame that we didn't get to play out our season, but it's great that they had one more year with us. So this year is, we're going for broke, and they're really stepping up to the challenge. I'm really proud of all 4 of them that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, with our program, it's a varsity sport only. Some teams are getting JV teams, but for Coconino, it's varsity only. So we've always had the idea of we're going to keep freshmen. So this group of freshmen that came in, they were kind of our developmental team. And you always have to build for the future, right? So these kids were part of that. And boy, is it ever paying off dividends. They stuck together, they stuck with it, but they've had that experience from getting touches on the varsity level since their freshman year. And, it pays off in the end. And just like we're trying to groom younger kids, we have 16 on our roster. This is the first year that I've never had freshmen. And that was kind of disappointing. And I think it's the whole COVID thing. So we'll be looking to get a few more sophomores out next year, along with some more freshmen, because, we're going to have quite the hole next year when we lose these 7 seniors. But, it's really paying off the time that they put in. And I told them when they came in, look, we're going to need you when you're juniors and seniors. And some of them stepped in right away as sophomores and put in a lot of time. So good for them. I'm glad they're getting the fruits of their labor and able to enjoy just a phenomenal year so far.
Yeah. Brooke and McKenna really had their first test yesterday against Northwest Christian. It did come down to the ones when we played Deer Valley, but they handled them pretty well. They're a very good pair together. And then yesterday we played Northwest Christian, and they had an unbelievable pair of ones. And we battled back and forth, neck and neck, ended up coming up just a little short, 19-21, 18-21. But it was really good for Brooke and McKenna to get a test against a really good pair.
And it was high-level volleyball.
Very high level.
Yeah, so it was fun. And it was also great for our twos with Maggie and Megan to step up and seal that match yesterday. So we've got different kids stepping up in different spots, and that's what makes a great team.
Now, Coach, you talk about some of the difficulties not having a JV program. Obviously, you guys rely very heavily on that senior leadership, but I want to ask, how do you try to grow that program with not having that developmental aspect to the team right now?
You don't cut freshmen or sophomores. So, you put them in, and you just got to keep them. Mm-hmm. And I've always done that. I started this program 8 years ago, and I think my second year we had like 50 kids come out, and I went to Carrie Creasel, who was coaching here at the time, and said, could you just come and help me? Because I've got to keep some of these kids to develop them once the seniors go. And I've always had that mentality and that philosophy, and it pays off. So, you have a bigger practice squad, and they're getting quality touches with those seniors. And they're, it looks a lot different than your indoor programs because you only have 2 on the side at one time. But when they mix in and play with each other, and then they are around those older kids, they learn from that. They learn how they're supposed to communicate on the sand, how they're supposed to act. So it's really helpful with them being, if we had a JV team only, they might not develop as quickly because they would be sequestered with just kids about their level and age. But when they are forced to step in and not be a drill killer per se, and have to make touches and, put a lot of pressure on them in practice, I think that really speeds up the developmental process.
And we're our own best competition a lot of times. So it's great playing each other. Yeah. And it just sets the bar high. Like she said, if you're going to be on the same court with those seniors, you got to play like those seniors, and it helps them along.
It seems like it's almost a double-edged sword when you've got no JV program. Obviously, you're giving freshmen and sophomores an opportunity to get varsity experience. However, you don't get that opportunity to have sort of a reserve at the JV level. So for injuries or just if you got somebody playing well, or maybe somebody at the upper level needs a break, or you want to bring somebody up, you don't have that. However, you are allowing these freshmen and sophomores and juniors to get experiences that they wouldn't get with a different program because they probably would be down on JV and then have to wait.
Exactly. And we do with, I believe when our program, when I put our name in the hat per se, 8 years ago, I think we were the 15th school to have beach volleyball. We were the first metro or outside the metro Phoenix area to have a beach team. So the AIA was thrilled that, a team from Flagstaff was going to play beach volleyball. Yeah. And as teams are growing, there are teams that are getting JV teams a part of their program. And, we only have 2 courts that we practice on, so I don't know that would happen. But what we're able to do when we travel is play several alternate pairs. So that's good. They're able to get game-like experience when we do go play these varsity matches, and that's always good.
Yeah, and a lot of times we are mixing some of those girls into the 4s and 5s. Like our lineup tomorrow is going to look a little different than it did on Monday, right? Because we're getting a few more of those in the roster.
it's kind of
trying to prepare them, Philip.
No, I know. That's of course, preparation is key. We all know it. You both know it. I know it as well. But Coach, we'll talk a little bit about some of the other schools that are a part of the beach volleyball scene here in Northern Arizona. Obviously, your best friends just across the street, Flagstaff High School. They have a beach volleyball program because Coconino can't just have nice things by themselves. Flagstaff's got to be involved as well. I'm just kidding. I love Flagstaff, and I have no issues with that high school.
We did ours a year earlier, however, but yes.
Well, you started the trend, and they said, well, you know what? If they're doing it, we got to do it too. So, but anyway, you've looking through the roster, I noticed a lot of players that we have seen at the indoor volleyball section, or I should say during indoor volleyball season, kind of making that transition to the beach volleyball season. So I want to ask, what is that collaboration with Coach Wallace? Because obviously Coach Wallace is going to be utilizing a lot of the players that we will see out on the beach playing volleyball, but they also play indoors. So is there communication throughout the season going, hey, Coach, we'd like to look at this person, or is it just kind of, hey, they show up and that's just how it is?
Yeah, it's almost treated as a separate sport, right? It's, if you had a football player playing baseball, and I do coach under Coach Wallace at JV indoor as well. So we do have a good relationship. She's very supportive, but I wouldn't say there's a ton of communication. We do share a lot of athletes, but we also have some beach only girls as well. So she's very supportive of the program, but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I've never coached indoor, and, it is, playing beach will help your indoor game because it will help with your agility, jumping ability, quickness, but your indoor game won't necessarily help your beach game.
Right.
Because it is, there's different philosophies, there's different movements, but it always helps when you have indoor skills, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So it's what's interesting with our program, and it's always been that way. The kids have extreme confidence on the sand for Coconino High School. I don't know what it's fun to see. We will go down and we'll play a team that we've got beat badly in indoor, but then we'll turn around and beat them on the beach. And so, we just try to, I don't know what it is. We've been successful for so long with our beach program that I think half the battle is getting girls to believe, right? Mm-hmm. So when they come out to the beach, they're like, this is our sport. We're good at this sport. And we need them to feel that way when they're playing indoor so they can also have that feeling there. They did some great things this year indoor, but they've just always had a sense of confidence about them when they come out and have played on the beach. So it's fun that way. We don't have to really work so much on their confidence level there. We just need to work on their skill level and their strategy type stuff when they're on the beach.
That crosstown rival you mentioned is a good example. We typically are the underdog in indoor, but we've never lost to them on the beach yet. So
knock on wood.
Well, good for you two because you do face Flagstaff at the end of the season, and we'll get to that as well. But I do want to talk about some of those challenges in coaching beach volleyball and the differences between the indoor and outdoor. And I think one of the biggest ones has to be battling the sand underneath your feet. I did not play beach volleyball. I went to Grand Canyon University. We do have a girls beach volleyball program. It's very, very good.
Very good.
Yes, they are. I have played just recreational beach volleyball out on the courts, and it is tough because you're not fighting with a flat surface. There's nothing stopping you. You're using your own momentum. You're using your own foot strength, whatever you want to call it. But when you're out on the sand, you take a step right and you get a nice hole in that sand. That right foot is going out. If you find a divot in the middle of the sand and you get stuck or you can't go backwards, it's hard to backtrack because you're fighting a mass out on the court instead of just the actual court. So outside of, I guess, the sand, and you guys can either call me really stupid or clarify a little bit more, but some of the challenges. But what are some of the other challenges in coaching that you've seen coaching the sport of beach volleyball?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the sand aspect, definitely a big difference, and that kind of bleeds into the different strategy. Indoor is much more about power, offense, and that kind of thing, whereas the beach game, often the tiniest girls that have the best ball control are the best beach players because they're quick, they control the ball, they can play defense, and you don't have to do a ton on offense. You don't have to get up and crush balls or anything like that. And so that it's just a strategy adjustment. And what we see when we go play a lot of teams is that the indoor coach is also coaching the beach program, but they don't get that strategy adjustment as much. And I think that's one of the things that gives us a little bit of a leg up, is that we understand the beach game. The girls understand the beach game. And it is a shift in strategy, even though, like Coach was saying, the basic skills are pretty much the same.
Right.
It's the sand is, you say that you think that's one of the most difficult things. It's actually the wind.
I have zero experience playing the sport outside of just hitting a volleyball at GCU. But yeah, I would assume the outdoor aspect of rain, of snow, because you guys are in Coconino, or maybe not snow now, but rain and wind. So the wind has been terrible here in northern Arizona. And I would assume that is a big factor. But I've got one last question before I let you both go. I want to thank you both for taking the time to come on the program. We talked about some of the other schools here in northern Arizona adopting that beach volleyball program. You've got Flagstaff that we mentioned a couple times, Mojave as well. They are both ranked within the top 15. Your program as well is a top 5 program here in northern Arizona. You don't necessarily think about the beach when you think about Arizona, or northern Arizona for that matter. But there's really been a nice growth of that sport up here in the northern part of the state. So I just want to ask, do you think you could see more high schools adopting something like this? Do you guys see a future for beach volleyball here in northern Arizona?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and it lends into it. I know a couple of years ago, it was the fastest NCAA growing sport. So it's going to do nothing but continue to grow. There's a lot more beach only girls that are playing. And that's becoming a trend. And, they train year round beach only, and they're not necessarily playing inside. But with that, it's pretty inexpensive once you get your beach courts to do. And it's a great, if there's schools that are looking for Title IX, need to get more girls involved, it's a great sport to do. And I think even at one point, NAU was looking to possibly do a beach team, because so many schools are getting it across the country now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just agree with Coach. I mean, the fact that it's getting bigger, not only on the NCAA level, but I think internationally getting a little more popular. It's just a fun sport, and it's definitely continuing to grow. And Arizona is really one of the front runners as far as high school beach programs.
Well, I think Arizona is the only state that actually has it as an official sport. I know California, they have it as a club sport, but they've had it for a long time. But I think we will see moving forward that more states will adopt beach volleyball as an official sport.
Well, coaches, we're excited to see the growth of the sport. You two coach a phenomenal program, and best of luck on the season going forward. I know you're both itching and scratching for that final matchup against Flagstaff at the end of this season. But Coach Scott Dendy and Coach Greta Hanneman, I want to thank you both for coming on the program this week.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll stay in the northern part of the state and talk with Northland Prep Academy softball coach Betty Dean. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I am Philip Catafamo, and I am joined by Northland Prep Academy high school softball coach Betty Dean. Coach Dean, welcome on.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Well, we want to welcome you. We're very happy to have you, Coach. Not the first time we've talked to a Spartan representative. We talked with Coach Blair of the girls soccer team, the athletic director as well. And of course, now we're making our way to the softball field. The Spartans are playing incredibly well right now. Solid season so far after the lost 2020 year. Coach Dean, obviously you guys have got to be feeling good right now. Undefeated on the season. You're ranked within the top 5 of the 2A conference in general. Do you got a secret to the team's success this season?
This is a bunch of young kids that have been dying to get back out on the diamond. And so it doesn't take much to get them excited about being out there. And they're doing all the work. I mean, they practice hard, they play hard, and it's just kind of one of those things that we do at MPA.
You know, Coach, what's interesting is you guys basically just picked up from where you left off in 2020. You have a lot of players who are new, but a majority of them are returning. Was there any sort of emphasis during that pause because of the COVID season where you were like, hey, make sure you keep up with your softball or maybe go play on a club team? Was there any sort of emphasis there just to keep players sharp?
Sure, we try that. But again, being a small school, we have kids that are multi-sport athletes at MPA. And so we've got some fantastic soccer players that play club soccer, and we have some fantastic volleyball players that play club volleyball. So they keep themselves in pretty good shape for most of the season, which is really nice.
Which is to your benefit, Coach, because like I mentioned, undefeated, top 5 ranking in the 2A. Northland Prep Academy plays in the 2A conference. Offensively, Coach, this team, you guys aren't just beating teams by a couple runs. I mean, there's some significant differences between the scoreboards. In their first 7 games, there's the first 6 of those 7 games, the Spartans have scored 15 runs. Again, in 6 of the 7 games so far this season, Coach, including a 5-inning game against North Point Prep, who I know you guys just got done playing not too long ago or will be playing soon. But, Coach, sophomore, you're going to maybe have to help me out with the names a little bit, but sophomore Bella Gerland is one that you're excited about. Maggie Uza is another player who's been playing great. They're both batting over 580. Who else has been really shining for you this year?
Yeah, so that's Bella Gerlanda. She's a sophomore, and then Maggie Oza, who's our junior. But we've also gotten some great production out of some of our seniors. Natalie Hansen is a senior, Peyton Schmidt. And then we've got Dakota Lakin, who's our only freshman this year. And she's coming on board after playing some travel ball, and she's been a huge asset to the team. And on top of that, we have Rhiannon Butler as our pitcher, and Rhiannon is she's a very stabling factor out there on the field. She's calm, she's cool, she's collected, she just throws the ball, and that's really nice to keep the team kind of at a nice even keel.
Yeah, well, you talk about that. Obviously, Maggie has also been on the mount in the circle for you as well. She's pitched in a little bit less, in only 11 innings so far for the junior pitcher. 11 innings so far, 19 strikeouts, though. That's really good, even though it's a small sample size. You just talked about Rihanna. Obviously has been a huge asset for you, for the team. What's the difference between both pitchers, Coach? Is there a velocity difference? Is there an off-speed difference? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so Rhiannon has more time on the mound because she does play in a travel league and pitches pretty regularly. So she's got a little bit more time. She has a few more pitch selections. Her accuracy sometimes is a little bit better, but I can rely on Maggie Oza to get on the mound and pretty much pitch a good game for us. She's been working on her pitch selection so that she's got more variety, more off speed. We've been working on our off speed and our changeups. So yeah, definitely don't hesitate to put her in the circle if we need to, but haven't needed to as much this year.
Yeah, very much so. And you've obviously got the offensive firepower to back up both pitchers. Both pitchers are carrying under 1 ERAs, which is incredible coming into this season. You graduate 6 seniors this year. You do return a lot of your big players. We talked about Bella being one. Who else, Coach, might we look at on the roster next season? I don't want to look too far ahead because season's not over yet. But, just out of curiosity, is anybody at the JV level incoming freshman that you're excited to see next year?
Yeah, so we're actually graduating 5 seniors, but that's still a chunk of seniors.
That's gonna be hard, Coach.
But we do. Our underclassmen are really stepping up. So Maggie definitely is solid from the juniors section, but we've got a couple of other kids there. Riley Reed, we expect to do some big things for us as well. She's a soccer girl coming out of soccer. And then our sophomore class is a good class with Bella, Rhiannon, Christiana, Janice. And we lost one girl this year just because of COVID restrictions. She'll plan to come back next year as a junior. And then, like I said, with Dakota Lakin coming in as our freshman, but we do have 2 8th graders that have been our managers this year. Okay. And they both play, they both are going to be huge adds. Rhiannon's sister, Kiana Butler, will be coming on as a 9th grader, and then Audrey Wilson.
Very nice. So it seems like, Coach, next season you should basically be returning back a lot of your solid players from this year, including a good core of young players coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't even know what else is out there. So we'll see what happens next year when we see new incoming freshmen and other kids throughout we sometimes get transfer ins from other schools. So we'll just have to wait and see. And that's just the way it is with small schools. You're happy to have a 12-person roster. I don't have a JV just because we don't have enough kids that we can support both. But we do look at the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders and try to keep them engaged.
Another interesting stat that I saw, Coach, you've got a few players who have multiple stolen bases on the season. I think your team leader has got 8, yes. But a lot of girls have at the very least 3. So I want to kind of ask just your mentality on the base paths. Have you always kind of taken a more aggressive approach when you've got players on base? Do you feel like maybe the emphasis on stealing bases has sort of diminished a little bit with more players opting for the long ball? I just wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit as to your mentality when you've got players on base.
Yeah, we try to not focus on the long ball, although we've got plenty of players that are capable of hitting triples and doubles and home runs. So we like to play that small ball game, and we want to be aggressive on the bases. My assistant coach, Justin Talley, is a wonderful third base coach, and he pushes the girls. He makes them run, makes them push themselves, and we test catchers' arms. And we're going to do that every game.
And as you should, Coach, I mean, you might as well. If you've got the base runners on base and you've got those girls who can go from first to second rather quickly, or even if you're playing against a team that has a catcher who doesn't have the best arm, I don't know why people don't take advantage more of those opportunities. But what about the idea of small ball, Coach? I mean, obviously you utilize it. Is that another art of softball that's slowly starting to make its way out?
It seems like it. We're working with kids on slapping, and everybody learns to bunt, and we have them button from right on the right side, on the left side. So yeah, we work a lot on the speed part of the game, wanting to kind of pick it up, speed it up, and keep everybody kind of guessing, keep our opponents guessing.
Coach, you talked about some of those challenges early on regarding coaching at a smaller school, one of which not having a JV program this year. But are there any other issues that arise when you coach at a relatively smaller school?
Yeah, I mean, you're sharing these kids, they play a lot of sports. So we have a lot of multi-sport athletes. And so, sometimes they get a little tired, by the time they get to spring sports. So we hope they have enough gas in their engines so that they can keep powering through softball. So that's a big issue because I don't have a feeder organization to feed into me. The other thing is because we're a small school, we're at the liberty of using FUSD fields. And sometimes that can get a little, complicated and strange. But, for the most part, we've got a great relationship with FUSD and the field we're playing on, we're working on it, getting it, up to a level that we feel other teams don't mind to come to play on, if you will. That's the best way I can put that. So those are the 2 key things. And just that we're just pulling resources from wherever we can. I'm an off-campus coach. I have a full-time job, as does my assistant coach, and all the parent coaches are all full-time, they all have full-time jobs outside of this. So just carving out the time because we all want to give the girls a great experience.
Would you say more of a hands-on deck sort of approach, Coach, where you're kind of relying on a lot more people to sort of help steer the ship?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we have a great parent crew. We've had it in the past, but this year's it's even overflowing even more. So it's so appreciated by the coaching staff to be able to have parents that can help out with driving vans or, right, preparing meals or preparing the field or whatever it takes. And they're all ready to do that. So it's great.
Again, we were speaking with Northland Prep Academy softball coach Betty Dean. The Spartans are currently undefeated on the season so far, ranked within the top 5 of the 2A conference. Coach, I did say some of the negatives, but I'm curious, are there really any positives when it comes to coaching at a smaller school? Obviously, you just talked about the parent support has been huge. Are there any others?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get to know these kids. And I know them from Little League on up. So some of them I've known since they were 8, 9 years old. And so being able to watch them progress and mature and develop as young ladies it's amazing. And NPA does a great job at, supporting the kids academically so that they can play sports, and academics always come first. And so we do focus on that a lot.
Yeah, very much so. But is there any program, Coach, any well-known program that you yourself sort of look at and go, and it could be at the college level or the high school level, is there any other program that you look at and go, this is the gold standard of softball program right here? Is there anybody that you that jumps out at you?
Well, I'd be remiss to not talk about our friends down there in Tucson, right? That's a great coaching program, and they create some great athletes. But UCLA is the other one. I've had some opportunities to talk with the UCLA coaches through one of the national organizations, and they're just so open to helping these smaller programs, which is so appreciated.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. I attended GCU. I worked for GCU TV, so I got a chance to get a little bit closer with the softball coach over there, Coach, and of course I'm forgetting her name, Coach Ann Pearson. There we are. I remembered her name. Coach Pearson's very nice. Another great softball coach who's got a lot of knowledge. Did get an opportunity to speak with Patty Gasso of Oklahoma when they came down. GCU, another great program, and we'll add Northland Prep to that great program as well. There, Coach Dean. Again, Northland Prep Academy softball coach Betty Dean, excuse me. Coach Dean, you wrap up your series against Page this week. You wrap up your region games as well next week. We're heading into the playoffs. Your team is rolling as best as they can right now. So I'm curious, as we approach the playoffs, is the toughest test on its way for this program?
We think so. Yes. Yeah. And we're preparing for that. We approach every game as though they're going to beat us.
Yeah.
But we do think that our toughest pitching, our toughest hitting, it's coming to us when we get into the state tournament, which will be exciting.
Well, Coach, we're excited to see how the team ends out, and we want to wish you best of luck going forward. You got a tough schedule coming up, and the playoffs right around the corner, so best of luck. I'll throw out a Go Spartans there, and hopefully we'll be talking a little later about possibly a 2A championship.
Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
I'd like to thank all my guests for coming on the show this week. Of course, Coach Betty Dean of Northland Prep Academy, Dalton Schwetz of Coconino Baseball, and Greta Hanneman and Scott Dendy of Coconino Beach Volleyball. That is going to do it for this week's episode of Off the Bench. I want to thank you very much for watching and listening. We will be back next week with more sports. We'll see you next time.